Welcome back to the D3 Energy live stream. I am Greg Davis, the founder and CEO of D3 Energy. And this is my live stream, and thanks for coming back. And yesterday I gave you a little history on Davis Oil Company and then the move to Hollywood and Fox Studios and the real estate industry. And today I'm going to talk to you about the formation and growth of Davis Petroleum Corp. And then give you a little 101 on the oil and gas industry and conventional and unconventional oil and gas. So in 1995, my father and I decided to start Davis Petroleum Corp. And the focus was conventional oil and gas along the Texas and Louisiana Gulf Coast. And we hired on a small team. We had guys like Fritz Lawson, Vince Manera, Bob Patrick. And over about a 10-year period, we found over 90 million barrels and 250 Bs of gas. And we expanded into the Deepwater Gulf and into the Rocky Mountains. And it was a great run. And in the mid-2000s, the oil and gas industry started moving away from conventional oil into what we call unconventional oil and gas. So it's trying to get oil and gas out of rocks and shales that before, without the technology, we couldn't get it out. Plus you had high oil prices. So the lure of these vast resources in these shale formations and high oil prices and new technology made people move away from the traditional, the conventional, the tried and true of conventional oil and gas drilling and production. And so, what is conventional and unconventional oil and gas? So, essentially, oil and gas, as I said before, is formed deep in the ground, and it forms in these formations that get buried with organic matter, and essentially the oil or natural gas are generated, and either they stay trapped in the formations in what we call tight rocks or tight shales, so the molecules form and then they stay there. Those are unconventional resources or formations. What you all know about as fracking. And fracking is how those resources are tapped. The oil that has migrated into pools or reservoirs and we drill for those are what we call conventional. So as I said, in the 2000s, the industry, Wall Street, moved away and drilled up vast resources along in Texas, Louisiana, all over the country. And with the high oil prices and horizontal drilling and hydraulic fracturing, America has essentially become energy independent. And so that has worked for quite some time. However, it's more expensive, requires higher oil prices versus the conventional, the traditional, good old-fashioned oil and gas that D3 Energy and other companies are starting to move back to. And we'll get into that paradigm shift tomorrow. And so what has happened is when oil prices collapsed several years ago, suddenly these resources became uneconomic, these unconventional resources, because it was more expensive and required more personnel, and just the economics didn't work. And this is why we had the big downturn. However, the industry has figured out how to bring the cost down to where some areas of unconventional resources are profitable and others are not today. And we had huge layoffs of people, and it's just been a very difficult time. Now there is a move back, and the benefits and the vast resources that are remaining in conventional oil and gas formations, the areas that we're going back to, it's coming back. And so this is the paradigm shift that I will get into and talk to you about more. But essentially, for us to tap into these conventional resources requires less money, less of an environmental footprint, if you will. And essentially, we're able to drill into these formations and the oil and gas will flow. So, and that's what we're doing at D3 Energy, and tomorrow I will talk to you about that more. I want to go and answer a question right now that came in. Thank you very much from Missy Allen from Dallas, Fort Worth area. Thank you, Missy. Missy asked a question about fracking and earthquakes. And there's been a lot of press and a lot of just a lot of information, a lot of news about fracking, and there has been some earthquakes that have been in various areas where there's oil and gas activity. Well, I just want to give you the facts and information. So essentially, as I said before, the Earth is a moving and living, breathing organism, and it is not perfect, it's imperfect. It has all these fractures, if you will, and they're all over the world. And the most famous one you know of is in California, the San Andreas Fault. Well, that's just a big fracture, and when the San Andreas moves, it causes big earthquakes, just like the faults in Indonesia. Well, Texas and Oklahoma and other areas have faults, and they've been there for millions of years, and they move, and there's subsidence and things like that. But the bottom line is we have those faults there in and around where there's fracking, because wherever you find oil and gas, you're going to find faults. So with all the oil and gas activity, with the fracking, there has been earthquakes. And so the answer to the question is, there is studies that show that the earthquakes are caused by fracture stimulation, or more specifically about the water injection wells that are in and around these areas where water is injected into the ground to put it away, the wastewater. And so there's some studies that say, yes, there is some evidence for the earthquakes. There's others that are inconclusive. My personal opinion is the Earth has been moving in these areas for a long time. There's been more oil and gas activity, and wherever you have faults and you have fluids, chances are they're going to move. But these are not the big faults like you would find in California. So on a scale of 1 to 10, a California earthquake is going to be big if the fault moves. In an area like Dallas, Fort Worth, and Oklahoma and other areas, these faults are a different type, and they're going to create less earthquakes, if you will, or smaller earthquakes. So there's information for and against. I tend to think that the activity has generated some of this activity, and there is a lot of information out there, and it keeps coming in. And if you want to go and do a little more research on your own, you can Google fracking, earthquakes, and SMU. So SMU did a study. SMU fracking earthquakes, type that in and Google that, and you'll get a research paper. And then you can also type Texas Railroad Commission fracking and earthquakes, and you will get some articles on that. And again, more information to be revealed. I just want to give you the facts. So once again, thank you very, very much for joining me today. And tomorrow, I will get into more information and give you some background on D3 Energy and the exciting things that we are doing there. We are focused on conventional, and we are going back to the tried and the true, and we will be I will be giving you more information about that, and I know my time is limited here, so I want to thank you very much for joining me today, and tomorrow we'll pick it back up. If anybody has any questions, please send them along, and I will try to get them answered tomorrow. And thank you very much for joining me. Have a great day. Today is the eclipse day, so get out there and watch the eclipse, but please make sure you don't drive while you're doing that. Thanks.